Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Psychology of Dating podcast. You're listening to Nadine Newkirk. I'm both a clinical psychologist and a dating coach. And for today's episode, I'm very excited to introduce a guest speaker, Monica Tanner from the US. She's a relationship coach, certified in both relational life therapy and sex therapy. She's an author of a book called Bad Marriage Advice, and also a host of the podcast Secrets of Happily Ever After. And I'm really excited to hear your expertise on, the other end of what, once you've got that relationship or marriage, what makes it healthy and how people who are dating can actually apply that to their dating now rather than waiting till they're in the relationship.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
welcome,
This is one
Monica.
of my favorite topics is how to prepare for happily ever after because
Mm,
by accident. So
yeah, lots of movies and things tell you it'll just happen once you're there, right?
yes, right.
Yeah. Um, so my first question to you is I always do a bit of a deep dive before I host someone on the podcast. And I noticed on your website that you said initially for the first 15 years, you were kind of listening to bad marriage advice. It sounds like maybe you have some lived experience of, things that were not so helpful in looking for relationships or skills. And then you transformed and now you're helping others. Yeah, I was just a bit curious about your journey and how you got here.
Yeah. Well, from a very young age, I was very interested in what made relationships work. So, as a young child, I grew up on Disney movies and happily ever afters. And I just remember floating around the house thinking everything was perfect. And then one day when I was 12 years old, my parents sat me down and told me they were getting a divorce. And I remember thinking,
Mm.
wait, this is not in any of the storylines, right?
Hmm.
And it was a big upheaval for me. And so at a pretty fairly young age, I would look at and study other people's relationships, like my friends and family members and things like that. And I had actually a hard time finding people that looked like they were happily married. It seemed like everybody was very serious and doing the work of marriage, and they weren't really enjoying it very much. And so when I went to college, I studied sociology and, kind of family systems and was trying to figure out how do we create a happy family where people are having fun and enjoying themselves. And so I have, been very interested in that for a long time. And right after I graduated from college, I met my Prince Charming. We started a family. We started a business, and we had 4 children. And I remember
Wow.
the first years of marriage were quite treacherous. I mean, I don't want to
Mm.
paint a terrible picture, but I just remember thinking, I've studied this. I know this stuff. Why is this so hard? And I realized that I had a lot of my own work to do before I could really enjoy our marriage. And so it's not anything that my husband did wrong or that I even did wrong. It was just a matter of learning really who I was and learning skills to kind of talk about the things that I wanted, needed, expected, hoped for in my marriage. And yeah, I mean, we have 4 children. Two of them are grown and out of the house. The oldest is married, and that's who I wrote that book for. And then I have 2 kids still at home, one in high school and one in middle school. So we're still, in the thick of raising our kids. We've got snotty teenagers running around who think they know everything about everything, right? That puts a bit of a strain on a marriage, but they are super fun. We have teenagers running through the house all the time. And my husband and I have a lot of fun together. We're not perfect, but we do really, really enjoy being married, being parents, doing the work of marriage together. And so I like to help other people kind of find that type of happiness as well.
That's so inspirational. And I love that when you said that that book, started out as writing it for your kid. I was like, how special. What a lucky kid to get that advice from their mom.
Well, I'll never forget when he called me. He was 21 years old and he said, Mom, I've met the girl I'm going to marry. And I'm like, that's fantastic. And he's like, I want to propose before Valentine's Day. This was last year. And I was
Hmm.
like, whoa, hold the presses. You are just a baby, right? And so there was just so much. I'm like, oh, though, there's so much I want you to know before you make this massive decision. And he really had already made the decision. and it turned out great. She's wonderful. We all get along very well.
Mm-hmm.
But I did sit down to write him just a little bit of a letter, and it quickly turned into a book because I realized when you say you're getting married, everybody has advice for you. And some of that advice is really bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know you mentioned in an email kind of organizing this podcast that you've got some like myth busters for, sometimes people give you advice which isn't actually so helpful.
Yeah,
Could
a
you share
lot
any of
of the
those with
time.
us?
Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, and because I know that your podcast is more geared towards individuals who are dating,
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of these things that you can start doing long before you decide to get married,
Hmm.
and really kind of test out the waters. So, a piece of advice that I think is really good. I mean, it's bad advice, but it's a good thing to mention here
Hmm.
is find somebody that completes you. I think this is kind of, Hollywood has made this idea really, appealing that you find kind of your other half or somebody who
Hmm.
is going to fill in the gaps, that type of thing. And I think when you're dating, it's really, really important to learn who you are and become a very strong individual. In fact, I work with a lot of single clients, and one of the things that, in fact, I was working with a young girl today, and she's darling, and I love her, but she's like trying to figure out what to do with her life. She's making really big, important decisions, like where she's going to go to college and what she's going to major in, and all those types of things. And she's very religious, and she's like, I've been praying about it, and I just want God to tell me what to do and how I'm going to find the man I'm going to marry and all these things. And I'm like, here's the thing. The reality is that all of your choices, and she kind of told me all the different things she's thinking about. I'm like, those are all good choices. And the reality is I don't think Heavenly Father's like, those are all good choices. He wants you to find something that you enjoy doing because now's one of the
Hmm.
only times in your life where you don't have to work it out with another individual, like what's going to be
Hmm.
best. You're not responsible for anyone but yourself. And so now's the time when you get to learn about yourself and you're much more likely to find somebody to marry when you're doing something that you really love and you're having fun doing it. That's more attractive than if you're just trying to do the right thing and be in the right place to find the right person, right? She's really afraid that, if she makes the wrong decision, she won't be in the right place to find the right person. And I'm like, well, chances are you're never going to really know, but the chances are much higher you're going to find the right person if you're doing something you love doing and you're passionate about and you're developing a talent that you really enjoy, right? And that doesn't change long after you're married. I mean, now, I have old kids that have left the house and older kids, they don't need me as much. And so I'm alone for a big part of the day. And so I have to decide what am I going to do to develop myself and to contribute and, you know,
Hmm.
create a good life for myself because a happy, fulfilled mom is much better than a mom who doesn't know what to do with herself and sits around on the couch and just worries about her
Hmm.
kids all the time, right?
Hmm.
And so it's always important for us to be developing our talents and doing things that fill our cup and help us feel like we're contributing and things like that. We're much more likely to be happy, to attract people that are also happy and so looking for somebody to complete us or make us happy is going to leave us probably very disappointed.
And puts a lot of pressure on that person, right? Like it might work for a certain period of time, but maybe they get busy and get a new job, or, there's a bit of conflict, and then you don't have anyone else to rely on. And yeah, the one guarantee is that you're going to be with yourself the rest of your
Yeah.
life.
Yes, you want
Um,
to make yourself happy.
mhm.
You want to learn what makes you happy and what makes you, what you're passionate about, what fills your cup, right? And I
Mhm.
think those are such important things to learn about yourself and to develop within yourself because when you have a lot to give, then you can choose to give and love and support another person as you look for support, from someone else
Mhm.
as well. So,
Yeah. I know a lot of people when they it's really painful that, they don't have a partner yet or they're really wanting to date. And it's very easy for the mind to see all the kind of negatives or downsides of being single. And, yeah, sometimes the work that we do is looking at, there's pros and cons of being in a relationship, pros and cons of being single, and like, are there any opportunities that you have right now, um, in like actually having the space and time, as you said, to make your own decisions, explore your own hobbies or career or things like that. That can actually be a gift that you have time to develop those. And it's actually
Right.
directly connected with having a fulfilling relationship later down the track, even though it feels like you're just working on yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And learning how
Hmm.
to make decisions is really important
Mm,
because if you get in a marriage and you expect your partner to make all of the decisions,
hmm.
you're going to really struggle because resentment's going to form if you're always expecting the other person, but also the other person probably doesn't want to make all the decisions on their own, right? That you like to be a good teammate, you have to be a good decision maker. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, when you're single is a great time to try things. And if you don't like it, then try something different. It's like really easy to pivot and change and try new things when you're single versus when you're married and you have a family and
Hmm.
responsibilities and lots of people depending on you. So, enjoy the time when you're single to try new things, to be spontaneous, to figure out how you operate best. Like all of those things are so important.
Hmm. I just had a thought. I'm wondering your like advice on maybe the flip side of this. So sometimes people have this thought, well, I'm not perfect yet. I still need to work on myself. And then they kind of use that to avoid and delay dating, or, sometimes that can be actually a bit of a blocker. And how does
Yeah.
someone know like that balance of like, putting time focus into dating, focusing on themselves? Hmm.
So that's really interesting. I feel like dating coaches ask me that a lot. And it's interesting because I think as humans, we're wired for connection. We want to pair bond, we want to be in connection with other people. And so I think, if you're feeling that way, like I need to develop myself more before I date or something like that, you may kind of look into what maybe your fears might be around that or something else because just our human nature is to want to pair bond with each other. So,
Mm.
there might be something else operating there.
Yeah, something below that. And it's totally fine to do both simultaneously. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Like you
Well,
can be
you're going to be
dating.
growing, developing your whole life, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not like you meet the person you're going to marry and then all of a sudden you stop growing and making decisions and trying new things.
Hmm.
No, you're always growing and developing. And so you want to
Hmm.
find somebody who you can grow with.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. Um, I was, yeah, another question I had was you talk about helping people have like successful skills and tools to like create a healthy, loving, long-term committed relationship.
Mhm.
Are there any um, like practical skills or tools that you think would be useful while they're dating? Um, that maybe that you still use then when you're in a long-term relationship, but someone could use
I
now.
mean,
Hmm.
yeah, any type of communication skills so important.
Yeah.
This is so interesting because we're having this conversation at the end of my day, and so I've
Hmm.
had all my clients that I've worked with, and so I talked about the client that the young girl. I also worked with a client today who is a man, and we talked a lot about he is in the beginning stages of a relationship that he's really really excited about, and we were talking about what are some skills that he can be working on, and this is another chapter in my book. It's don't sweat the small stuff. I
Mm.
hate that advice because where do you think the big stuff comes from, right? So let's learn how to skillfully address the small stuff. And this is something that can start long before you're married, is learn how to talk about the little things that are important to you. And so, we were talking specifically about Valentine's Day with this one client, but he was like, when should I start doing check-ins? Meaning when ask like, how do you feel loved by me? And I'm like, you don't have to wait until you're married or anything like that. Like that's a great question to ask somebody that you're dating is, when do you feel most cared for, or what can I do to make you feel loved, or whatever, to help you, to support you. Like those types of learning those things about each other is so important and definitely should happen long before you decide to spend your life with somebody, right? And so,
Mm,
um, the skill of communicating skillfully and asking for what you want. So, if you're dating somebody and Valentine's Day is coming up, it's really good to set expectations and not just wait and see what happens and then be disappointed. So, I
mm,
work with in fact, I love to state this statistics. I get more calls as a relationship coach in the 2 weeks following Valentine's Day than I do any other time of the year. And the
mhm,
reason why is because people sit around and they hope and they hope and they hope that their spouses or their significant others are going to do something amazing for Valentine's Day. And then when they don't, they're super disappointed. Some people even drop hints. They're
mm,
like, oh, I made it really obvious what I wanted for Valentine's Day, or what I wanted to do for Valentine's Day, or what I didn't want for Valentine's Day. And they didn't pick up on it. And I'm like, that's right, because husbands and wives, they don't pick up on hints. Like that's not their actual job. What would be really amazing is if we learn to ask for exactly what we want and we do it
mm,
skillfully. Like we say, hey, I was thinking that would be really awesome this year for Valentine's Day if we fill in the blank with what you're hoping for, right? Or since Valentine's Day is on a Saturday this year, and I just feel like restaurants are going to be so busy, what if we did something a little bit different and celebrated this way or whatever, right? Like it's really good to be able to talk about your expectations, make them known to your partner, help your partner win, right? Like set them up for success, give them everything they need to do exactly what would make you feel so special and so loved.
I think that's great advice. And I think often, again, maybe misconceptions from like, myths and movies and things like that is,
Like Prince
no, it's
Charming
only
gets
love if they
no.
just guess and they just know. When,
That
like,
sets people up for so much
yeah.
disappointment and it creates a lot of resentment as well.
Mhm. It made me think about, for me, birthdays, I have a specific way I want to be set. Like in my family, you text as soon as you wake up, like 6 a.m.
Right.
I
You like
love
try to be the first
presents.
one.
Yep.
Yes.
I love surprises. And I realized in past relationships, I had these expectations. I was like, that's
Mm.
how you show care for someone. And then, like, one boyfriend didn't call me to 3 p.m. And I was like, what is going on? Or
See,
like they were
that's
asking me
actually,
what I want. And yeah, actually being able to clearly say, like, for birthdays,
I
I like
want to be
XYZ.
surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. That's really interesting because, yes, I'm like, be really specific about what you want,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe what you want is to be surprised. So
Mm,
maybe give like a few options,
yes.
and then be surprised, right? So the other thing about what you're talking about is we all have a different relational blueprint, right? So it would be awesome if we could just like pick up a manual on how to be a great boyfriend, girlfriend, or spouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that each and every one of us has a different relational blueprint. So we teach other people how to treat us and how to treat us well. And learning how to do that is it's a skill. It's like learning any other skill. If you want to get good at an instrument or a sport, you have to make it a priority and then you have to be bad at it before you're good at it. And so
Mm,
learning how to like help somebody treat you the way you want to be treated, you've got to learn those skills. You've got to learn how to stand up for the things that are important to you. You've got to learn how to make requests so that you're not disappointed and let down when the person can't read your mind. You've got to learn how to talk about things when you're disappointed. You've got to learn how to repair when you have, a disagreement or an argument or something doesn't go your way. These are all skill sets that are kind of clunky at first. You're like, you won't be that good at it originally, but after practicing and practicing, and dating is a really good practice ground, is, you
mm,
know, help people win, help people treat you the way you want to be treated. And you start by asking for what it is that you want.
Hmm. I really like, I think that's a helpful point for people that you're going to be bad or it's going to be clunky when you're first starting
Right.
skills. Because it's so easy to get discouraged when you try it
Mm.
once and you're like, oh, I was so awkward. And then, there was lots of tension when I had that conversation, or even realizing that you can say your expectations, you can say your needs, and you're not always going to get it.
Mhm.
Because I
Right.
know my
What to
brain did this. I'm like,
do.
but if I did all the effective strategies, then I should just get what I want, right? And I
Mhm.
think learning that, that's actually how you get to test out if you're a good match with someone, if they can listen and reciprocate. And even then, no human's perfect. You're still going to have times where it's a bit of a mismatch.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
it's great to practice being disappointed because
Mm-hmm.
I have one of the best husbands in the whole wide world. And every once in a while, I'm disappointed when he doesn't do something that he usually does, or he shows up in a way that, I wasn't expecting. And you know, being married or being in a long-term committed relationship means you're going to be disappointed a lot of the time. And how do you handle it yourself when you're not getting what you want? Those are all really great skills to develop.
Any skills you can impart for the audience on how to manage disappointment?
Oh, yes. One thing that I like to talk about is keep small disappointments small. So, something that we like to do, like our brains love to do, is make big mountains out of small disappointments, right? So, like, my husband's really good at doing the dishes. He does the dishes most nights. But like, let's say on a Thursday night, he doesn't do the dishes, and I'm disappointed because I was hoping that he would do the dishes, and I woke up Friday morning and they weren't done. And so instead of just thinking on this one Thursday night, my husband didn't do the dishes and that's disappointing. It's tempting to think, oh, my husband never helps around the house. He's so lazy. He doesn't even think about us at all, right? And so we
Hmm.
like to like universalize small disappointments. So one
Yeah.
good practice is to try to keep small disappointments small.
Notice when your brain's kind of like catastrophizing or
Mm.
predicting patterns because he's done it once now, it means it's going to happen every week or
Yes.
hmm.
And a good indication that you're doing that is the language of never or always. If you hear yourself saying, oh, the guy I'm dating never opens the door for me, you
Hmm.
might be universalizing something, right? And then
Hmm.
you have to go back and ask, have I ever told him that I appreciate when a guy opens the door for me, right?
Hmm.
So like it's really important to think about like, am I running these little tests in the background for, maybe my significant other and they're failing them and I'm complaining about it? Here's the thing, like, here's a really good litmus test. If you find yourself complaining a lot, there's a request underneath that complaint. And you have to ask yourself, am I getting upset or disappointed about something that I've never asked for?
Hmm. Hmm. I think that's a really good point.
A lot of us do
Yeah.
that.
Like
It's
complaining's
very
a like
nature
ineffective way to try and get a problem solved. And like, is there
is
another
to
way we
complain
can
about it.
ask more directly or really actually
Mhm.
clarify what you're wanting and set a boundary? Hmm.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So if you find yourself complaining, first and foremost, I would figure out what is the request underneath my complaint? What is it that I actually want? And then see if your person you're dating is willing to do that for you because maybe they are. And maybe maybe you were about to write off somebody perfectly perfect without giving them the opportunity to show you that they can take requests, that they can take feedback, that they can, improve and treat you the way you want to be treated.
Mm. Yeah, it's not giving someone the opportunity if you're like, no, you didn't do it this one time, so you're out, but you're not actually seeing if I asked for it, like, do they have growth mindset? Can they change? Are they willing to work with
Yeah.
me? You
I
actually
have
get
a
to see some
client.
great qualities in a person if you give them
Yeah.
that opportunity.
Right. I have a client who she broke up with a guy because he was terrible at texting. And, she didn't really give him the opportunity to text the way she thought that he needed to text, right? And so,
Mm.
she found out later that he was dating another girl and that he was really good at texting her. And I was like, huh, I wonder if that other girl, you know, asked him to be better about it. And he
Mm.
did,
Hmm.
like you just never
Yeah.
know until you ask.
Yep. Notice and name a situation rather than just assume.
Mhm.
Hmm. Um, I was curious as well for, like, I know that there's, myths around marriage and like long-term relationships. Have you come across any unhelpful myths in dating? Because there's a lot of conflicting advice in dating. Like they say, you know, birds of the same feather flock together. So find someone similar. But then they also say opposites attract. And it can get
Yes.
really confusing. And you have a dating scenario come up and you ask 10 friends and they all tell you something completely different. Yeah, I was just wondering if you've come across any of your time.
I think differences are good. I think it would be
Hmm.
really boring to be married to somebody who was exactly like you and agreed with you all the time. I don't think that
Mm.
would be very much fun at all. So I think differences are important and they create some fun and some passion in your marriage. Just learn, make sure that your significant other knows how to navigate those differences and is willing to learn how to navigate those differences or respect those differences. So
Mm.
I wouldn't be afraid of differences. I would use it as an opportunity to kind of, learn about somebody who's different than you. I mean, like I have all these analogies that I like to use, and one of them is like if you you know, if you don't, if you can't see other people's perspectives or respect the differences and the way other people see things, it's like looking at the butt of an elephant your entire life. If you're never going to accept anyone else's perspective, you might be stuck looking at the butt of an elephant your entire life, right? But if you marry somebody who has a different perspective than you, they might be able to see the front of the elephant and you can see the back of the elephant. And if you work together, you're going to get a really great picture of what an actual elephant looks like and how to
Mm.
tackle a problem that looks like an elephant, right? But if you marry someone just like you, then the two of you could just be standing there looking at the butt of an elephant your entire life. You could just think that's what an elephant looks like.
Mm. Yeah,
And
they can
so
actually
I
use the
do
different skills from like having differences and you
Absolutely.
can
So I
combine
do
them.
think
Hmm.
differences are valuable. But I think that, um, learning the skill of compassionate curiosity is important. So, can you ask questions? Can you show compassionate curiosity for your partner's differences? Respect their differences, gain understanding of how they see and do things different and have an appreciation for it. I think that's so important. And then I have a friend on social media and she's been married to her husband for a very long time. And they did this little reel about them in the bed. They were in the bedroom, and she was asking him if he knew how to put the pillows on the bed. So, typically men don't really care about the throw pillows on the decorative pillows on the bed, and women really do. It's like important to them, right? And so it was this really cute reel about him trying to put the pillows on the bed and her correcting him, right? And she's like, "Now why would you put that there?" And he was like, "Oh, I don't know." And it was her instructing him on how she likes the pillows on the bed. And that's a perfect example of there's no right or wrong way to put decorative pillows on the bed. There's just the way she likes the pillows. And
Mm.
so I always think that's kind of a good test is can the person that you're dating or you're thinking about, getting together with, can they take correction on something that they don't even think is that important, but it may be important to you? And so
Mm.
I think that's a really important thing to consider and talk about. I don't think you can over communicate anything. There's no such thing as too much communication. So, start talking early about the things that are important to you and see how the person that you're interested in reacts, responds, asks questions, wants to learn more. Those are all good data points to consider.
Mm. I think that's encouraging for people because I know a lot of people I see have these fears like, I don't know, I'm asking for too much, or I'm too sensitive, or this isn't a big topic, so it's not worth bringing up. And I like that example of the throw pillows where, yeah, there is no one right way, but it's just something uniquely to you that, maybe every day if you leave the house first and then you get home and the bed's a whole mess, like it would make your whole day if you come back and the throw pillows are neatly the way that you like it.
Or just that
um,
your husband would care enough to like
yeah.
know how you like the throw pillows,
hmm
right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it might encourage people that, it doesn't matter how like small or big it seems like it's still worthy of bringing up and having a discussion about.
Yes,
hmm
absolutely. Absolutely. And you
Yeah.
can never start too early. I think that's a
hmm
great activity for a first date. Invite someone into your bedroom and show them how you like the throw pillows and see how they respond to that.
Yeah. And it can be interesting. You get to know someone else's unique quirks and, their intricacies and how they do their life.
Yeah, I did a podcast recently with a woman, and she was talking, we were talking about don't sweat the small stuff. And she said early when she started dating her soon to be husband, she had to explain this little quirk that she had. She said, I always knock things into the toilet. And so it's very important to me that whoever I live with can always put the toilet seat down because otherwise I'll knock things into the toilet and I don't want to get them out. And then it's a big problem. So she's like, I knew if I was going to marry this guy, he would have to agree to keep the toilet seat down.
hmm
And so I thought that was very unique to her and very important to her. And so it was worth communicating. And she found a man that she wanted to marry, and he was totally fine making sure that the toilet seat was always down.
Amazing. I'm glad she found that match. Yeah. Um, Another question I had was around, I know you mentioned that sometimes you work with people around building healthy attachment after they've experienced rejection. And that can come up a lot in dating, like in dating, you get more rejections than you do. You know, every connection isn't going to work out till you do find that long-term person. So you're going to have more chances of having connections that don't work. And how do you navigate that? Or, not lots of people will then kind of spiral and then go off the apps or dating for 6 months. Yeah, kind of really feel like it's something to do with them. There's something wrong with them, their worth. Yeah, just curious if you have any insights.
Yeah, I mean, I think attachment is real and it's important. And I think that we unwittingly attract people at a very similar level of attachment, if that
hmm
makes sense. So if we're very anxiously attached, we're probably going to attract somebody who's avoidantly attached to the same level that we are anxiously attached.
Mm,
Um, that just it happens a lot that way. And so it's good to know your tendencies, know your kind of weaknesses and your wounds, and to really work on those things when you're single, because I think the healthier you can be around that, the healthier partner that you're going to attract. Now, it's not a deal breaker. You can absolutely, correct your attachments in the bounds of a loving relationship. I say that wounds are relational, they're created in relationships, and so they are healed in relationships. So, it's not a problem, but I do feel like you're going to make it a lot easier on yourself if you become aware of these things, if you have some big abandonment wounds, to really work on those, to be aware of them, to know what your losing strategies are, to know what your protective, um, uh, what's adaptations are, right? Um,
hmm
because the stronger you are as an individual, the stronger partner that you're going to make. And so I always think two strong individuals make a really strong relationship. And it's relational math, is how I put it. So, if you have somebody that's only showing up halfway, like only sharing half of their opinions with, paired with a whole person, then you really only have half.
mm,
If you have two half people, then you only have a quarter, right? So it's like sort of the law of diminishing returns. But if you have one whole and another whole, then you have a really strong no one, right? Does that make sense?
Mm, it does.
So I think it's worth really working on yourself, really gaining a strong sense of who you are and how you feel about things, being willing to be wrong, um, holding to the things that are important to you. A good movie that I recommend to a lot of people just to start thinking about this is The Runaway Bride. It's this idea of self-abandoning, right? Like, how quickly are you to give up the way you like your hair or the type of eggs that you like, right? Just to fit in with this other person, right? Are you going to give up little pieces of yourself just to make yourself more agreeable? Um, and if so, I love the scene where Julia Roberts is making all the different types of eggs and she's figuring out what kind of eggs she likes and she's figuring out how she likes her hair and she's, learning about herself in order to be able to find a relationship that she's really good in, right? And that she can be herself and allow her partner to also be themselves and they can create a really strong relationship versus self-abandoning. So
Mm,
I do think attachment is something important to think about and see a coach or see a counselor if you feel like, man, I could really use some help in this area. I have some good references that I can give you of programs or people to see for this. But I think it's important to spend some time really thinking about that and trying to strengthen that.
mm. Because I think sometimes, understandably, as humans, we want to avoid pain and seek comfort and pleasure. And sometimes it can feel like if I just find the right person, then I'll have to dodge feeling or processing any of those wounds. The difficulty is that they will show up, like usually romantic relationships is what triggers our, core like early life experiences or family experiences or things like that, or past difficult relationships. And
Yes.
even though it can feel painful or scary to like address those wounds individually or with a therapist, like the way through is through. And
Yes.
yeah, and then you could have less triggers or things like that or more understanding when you actually get into relationships and dating.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, and you can have a really supportive partner, but they'll never be able to heal you.
Mm,
You have to heal you. So whether you heal yourself while you're single or heal
hmm
yourself in a loving relationship, you're
hmm
still gonna have to heal yourself.
hmm I remember when I discovered, I don't know if you know the book Attached.
Mhm.
Um, they go through like the kind of modern kind of science or research behind attachment styles and how it affects relationships. And I was listening to the audiobook and binge listened to it. I normally go to bed pretty early, but I was like up till 1 a.m. I was like, oh my God, light bulb, my whole dating history
Yes,
makes
yes,
sense. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So I can recommend that book to anyone who's who's interested.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Monica. There's been so many helpful insights. Is there kind of anything that you feel like is missing from our conversation today or that you wanted to share with the audience, or does that feel like it
I don't
covers it?
think
Hmm.
I think just what I would say to a listener who's dating and trying to find the right person is I would spend less time trying to find the right person and more time trying to be the right person. And I know that's kind of harsh or hard to hear, maybe. But I promise the more developed and confident you are, the more developed and confident person you will attract. And that is
Mm,
real truth.
I agree with that statement. Yeah. Well, if the listeners want to learn more about you, your programs, find your book, like how can they connect with you?
Yeah, you can find out all about me, my podcast, my free resources, and how to work with me just on my website. It's www.monicatanner.com.
Okay, great. I'll pop that in the episode show notes so everyone can have that. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast, Monica. Yeah, thank you very
Yes,
much.
Nadine, it's been awesome to get to know you as well.